This is the Little Moments Count radio podcast, created in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. Each episode, you'll hear interviews with early childhood experts on how to support the important brain development that takes place in the first 1,000 days of life, just through little moments every day. Learn more at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.
Welcome to The Ride. It's your boy Big Mike, locked in 98.9 FM KRSM Radio. Another edition of For the Culture is rocking. So, and this is a perfect way for me to start this show. So, I usually like to do this thing where I kind of freestyle, while I'm welcoming the guest on, and just to kind of welcome people back into the ride. But my computer tried to do this thing, but I still got it though. It tried to do this thing on me, but I still got it though. Hey, welcome to the ride. Welcome to the show. Hey, ready, set, you already know. First we gonna do a mic check, then I'm gonna welcome my guest. So what mic are we on? It says mic 4 or 3 or 2 or hold on. I think I'm gonna bring them both up. Hey, and I can already hear you, but we not gonna talk to her yet. Y'all don't get that chance, but we gonna say hello. Say hello.
Hello.
Hey, yeah, she sounds good, but we gonna be back. Hey, and we gonna get to that. But welcome to the show. Let's go. This episode of For the Culture Radio is presented in partnership with Little Moments Count and Minnesota Public Radio. Little Moments Count is a statewide collaborative focused on helping parents and caregivers learn about the importance of brain development in the first 3 years of life. Nearly 80% of brain growth happens in the first 1,000 days, and small moments of interaction, like talking, playing, reading, and singing, help create the pathways of interaction the pathways of interaction that build a child's brain during this early stage of life. My fault. For more information, you can visit littlemomentscount.org. Little Moments Count, shout out to you guys. All right, KRSM is excited to be partnering with Little Moments Count to host conversations focused on early childhood development. We'll be having guests every other week or so to talk about their involvement in Little Moments Count and how they view the role of early childhood development in creating bright futures and strong communities. Today, feeding us is, how do I say your last name?
Haulcy.
That I probably should have asked that one off air. Dianne Haulcy is the Assistant Commissioner of Early Childhood at the newly formed department, the Minnesota Department of Children, Youth and Families. We're going to get her to get that title in, right? She's known for her extensive leadership in early childhood development, advocacy for racial equity, and commitment to enhancing community engagement through initiatives like Little Moments Count and the podcast Early Risers. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. Dianne, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. Shout out to you for coming to KRSM Radio. Welcome in. It's a pleasure to have you here in the space.
Thank you. I really I'm enjoying the groove here.
Oh, yeah. Can you start by explaining why the first 3 years of a child's life are so critical for their development?
Yes, I absolutely can. And first of all, again, thank you for having me on. It's a great pleasure to come here, be with you today, and talk about early childhood. So the first 3 years of a child's life, or the first 1,000 days, we like to say, are extremely important because about 80% of our brains are developed in those first 3 years. So we're literally building our brains at that time. And so during that period, cognitive development is happening. Our social emotional development is happening. Motor skills, our fine and gross motor skills, our language, communication, all of that is developing in those first 3 years at astronomical rates. And so that's why those first 3 years are so important.
I'm a father. I have a lot of kids. My youngest daughter, it just turned 4.
Oh.
So whenever I had these conversations with guests when they come on and we talk Little Moments Count, I always like the information hits a little harder.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm fresh out of it, fresh in it still.
Yeah.
Like, kids dominate my life and my existence. What specific areas of growth are most impacted, you feel, during this time?
Yeah. And first I want to say I totally understand. My children are much older now. They're in college, but I've been working in early childhood for about 35 years. And so when my children were little, I learned so much through my work about, how they were developing. So I totally understand what you're talking about. So I think all of the domains that we talked about are important, but I think a couple of things are really important to kind of also understand. That development is actually happening in relationship with adults and caregivers. And so it's the back and forth that helps to develop the brain. So every time you hold your child, every time people sometimes call it baby talk or whatever, every time you're looking at that baby and saying some words, maybe you're singing, maybe you're telling a story, or maybe you're just narrating the day, like what y'all are doing. All of that is helping to build that child's brain. It's done in relationship with adults or caregivers, and if that child has older siblings, that's also happening. But the important thing to note is that it's happening in relationship.
Yeah, I love this conversation. So KRSM was kind of created for like the main thing is like access, right? Community, right? So like a radio station that is like this to be able to be accessible for community, right? In a way where like sometimes all you really have to do is like give us a space, and then we got it the rest of the way. We could thrive a little bit. But access to quality childcare.
Yes.
Right? Like, what role does that play in these first 3 years, right? Like,
yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, we do talk a lot about that in the field. And so first of all, it's good to note that there's several different kinds of childcare that people access. Sometimes people have what we call family, friend, and neighbor. Maybe it's grandma or an auntie or a neighbor that's watching your child when they can. Sometimes we have what's called family child care, where a person is actually operating child care out of their home. Or we can have center programs, a larger center-based program, Head Start, school districts can operate. So there's lots of different kinds of options for people. But access is in all of those settings, access is an issue. And more specifically, when I say access, I mean resources, being able to have the financial resources to afford certain types of care, being able to have the transportation available to get to those types of care on a daily basis. So all of these things, are involved in access. And I also will say, because this was also my experience when I was raising my children, when it comes to people of color, access also includes ensuring that you're bringing your child to a place that respects their culture, is enveloping their culture actually, and not harming them in those ways. So access can mean a lot of things, but all of those things, come to mind. And so when it comes to the financial piece, there are programs, for instance, at the state that we have that people can get into to help with the financial piece. I will say that, some of these programs have long waiting lists, but there is, help available for people.
That's what I was about to ask you, too, as well. Like, how is Minnesota addressing this issue?
So 2 main ways that people can access help for paying for childcare. One is what we call a childcare assistance program, and it's a federal program. It's been around for a really long time, and people can access that mainly through their counties is how you access that. But there's also a state-funded program that's been around for 10 to 15 years now, and it's called the Early Learning Scholarship Program. And you can apply to that program depending on where you live. There's different administrators, but in the Hennepin and Ramsey County, the administrator is Think Small, so you can access those through Think Small. And that program also, both of those programs are income-based in terms, you have to qualify based on your income. But once you do, specifically for the Early Learning Scholarship, you have that scholarship until your child goes into kindergarten.
Okay. Just to rewind a little bit, what is your job title?
So I am the Assistant Commissioner of Early Childhood at the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And I've been there a little over a year, since August of last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Actually, DCYF, as it's called, basically opened its doors last July 1st. So we still very new as a state agency. But we were created in the hopes of really consolidating and streamlining programs for children and families, with the hope that that families and our communities will be able to access these programs easier.
That is a great segue into my next question. You mentioned those scholarships. Can you discuss the importance of the early learning scholarships and how they impact children's educational outcomes?
Well, I think so that brings us back to the access question. So the hope of the Early Learning Scholarship is that it would provide access for lower income families to access high quality care, so that it kind of takes away the issue of I can't afford this. This care. Sometimes people get into care because it's all they can afford. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people piecemeal together care, through family and friends, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, because that's all they have access to. That's all they can afford. With the scholarship, that kind of takes that component out, and then you can choose. So parents can choose then where you want to send, if you want to send your child to family childcare or center or whatever. All of those options are available to you. You can choose where you send your child. So in that way, it does provide that access to a parent that may not have felt like they had it before.
As soon as you restated that, that access, there was a point that you made back a little bit ago about the healthcare component, and then I was just thinking about, and this is until you connected the dots, it didn't even dawn on me how important the experience really became. My wife and I just celebrated 10 years married in July, and we went to New Orleans. While we were in New Orleans, and we were just talking about this last night, my daughter had, like, my youngest daughter is 4 now. She has Downs. Her name is Marley. There was an accident. She ended up hitting her head on our anniversary.
Oh my goodness!
Split her eye open. Oh, it's okay though, right? So we get to we out of town. We get to the emergency room in New Orleans. The doctor who helps us is a black guy, and he's like, talking to us in a way that makes us feel, comfortable. It was like, we know he's a professional doctor, but like he clearly understands, like, this experience is one of those interactions that could go a little bit different.
Right.
So like he's really careful with her, and he helps her, and then stitches her up, and then afterwards, as he's leaving, he says, "You guys are the reason why I do this for her." Like almost telling me in a way without saying it, but like, I see you, brother.
Yeah.
And like that part hit me again. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I can relate to that. Not to get too deep, but
yeah, I know. I told you. I told you, Diane. I told you.
Yeah, that's a lot of the reason why I do this, the work that I do too. I mean, I grew up in Minnesota, raised my children in Minnesota. I grew up in Minnesota in a time where you didn't see a lot of black people. And my early childhood experience was indicative of that. And in fact, really, my whole educational experience was, to be honest with you. And so I know what it feels like personally to be unseen. I know what it feels like to not have people really understand where you're coming from. And I also know what it feels like to, be in an environment, an educational environment where you're hearing and absorbing some what might be considered mild but actually very unseen biases.
Yeah.
I'll say it that.
It's okay.
A lot of implicit biases that happen. And honestly, I've been doing this for a while. I don't always know if people realize that's what's happening. I really believe that a lot of times people don't realize what is happening. But that doesn't take away from the consequences of it.
Exactly. So, and we were going there. We were going there anyway, because there's a question I want to ask, and don't get to ask this as much as I would like, but what role does systemic racism and adversity play in early childhood development? Because that's kind of where we were going. And how can communities work together to create more equitable opportunities?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Mike, and actually something I've thought a lot about. In particular, I'll answer that question by telling you a story. So for like I said, I grew up here, raised my children here, and have worked in the early childhood field for quite a long time. But there was something about when George Floyd was murdered that I began to look at the field of early childhood differently in the wake of that. And I began to realize, we talked earlier on in the show about all the development that's happening in those first 3 years. Well, one of the things that's happening that's also being developed is our racial identity, and also how we learn about and how we learn to respond in our environment to other races. All of that is happening, during those first few years. And so I began to realize that we have in the early childhood field an incredible opportunity, maybe even responsibility, I would say, to really begin to address that and to look at that. Because children, people, people say this, people are not born racist, and that is absolutely true. But it's also true that we begin to learn about racism. We begin to learn our racist ideologies very, very early.
I agree.
Very early. In fact, you pretty much by the time a child is 5 years old, which is the age at which children are entering kindergarten, there are some studies that would say that that whatever racism or whatever biases you have are kind of set in at that point at 5 years old. 5 years old, and that's the time that you're entering kindergarten. And so there's a lot that happens in that in those first few years. One of the things that's happening is that children, as I mentioned, children are doing a lot of developing, and so they're absorbing everything. They're absorbing everything you're saying, but they're also absorbing things that you don't say. And, and your environment and your all of that they're taking in. And so even if, and this happens, you probably have heard people say this, where, a family might encounter the fact that their child maybe has used a racial slur one day. Maybe they're in middle school or something, and they're totally shocked because they say, we don't talk like that at home. I don't know where this child learned this. This is not us. And that may be true. It may be very true that they don't use that kind of language at home and that they don't. But what is also true is that they're picking it up from their entire environment. And what is also true is that if you haven't talked at all about race or racism with your children, then they are left to their own devices to absorb what is happening in their environment, in their physical bodies, and they have no place to process it or learn about it because you're not talking about it. And so I give this example sometimes. So let's say there's a white woman who is walking into a grocery store, and she's got her 3-year-old in her arms. She's holding her 2 or 3-year-old kid. And she's walking into the grocery store, and there happens to be an African-American man who's walking out of the grocery store. And she might even greet him and say, hey, how you doing? They may say a quick greeting as they're passing each other. But her body tenses up as she's holding that child. And she may not even realize that's happening, but her body's tensing up because there's something in her experiences that have taught her to be afraid. And so neither her or her child is really realizing what's happening, but that child is then learning, oh, I should be afraid right now. Something in my body is telling me I should be afraid. Now, the opposite is also true. If you have, if there's a person that's walking through this world, say it's a white person who is very physically comfortable around African Americans or around other people of color, their children will pick up that too. Yeah. And let's be honest, we kind of feel who these people are.
Yeah, you can tell.
You can feel it in your body when somebody is comfortable around you and when they're not.
That just happened to me this morning in my car as I was driving to the station. There was a kid that I just happened to catch eyes with because he's sitting behind his parent in the car seat, facing the rear like he's supposed to, but he can see me like straight out of the back window, can look directly at me, and he smiles and then he waves. And that, even just that was like, okay, this kid,
he's comfortable,
because he was clearly a little older. He was like maybe 4 or 5, like you could tell he's like a little, like a bigger kid, but he clearly was like, oh, and he waved. Even that, when you we may not talk about it or say anything, but and your body knows when you're coming in contact with someone who's comfortable with you. You have a podcast.
So after that, come to Jesus moment that I had, I'll call it. Several things happened, and I began to really do some soul searching. And part of what resulted in that is a podcast called Early Risers, where we talk about how do you talk to young children about race. And one of the reasons I started that is because what I realized is that there were people that wanted to know how to do this right, but they didn't know what to say, and they weren't going to ask anybody either because they didn't want to really talk about it.
What do you say?
Yeah, what do you say? And so I started a podcast about this and began to talk to other people about what do you say? What should we say? What should we be looking for? All of these kinds of questions around race. And I had a ball with it for 6 seasons. And then when I was able to come to the state Department of Children, Youth, and Families, I passed off the hosting to Andre Dukes. And so he just completed the 7th season of Early Risers.
How long is the season?
About 7 episodes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And they were weekly or what?
So when it's dropping, it's dropping like every other week.
Dope.
But now all of the, you can get all of the episodes are now wherever you get your podcasts. You can just download Early Risers and they'll all be there.
Dope.
And now it also includes like discussion guides along with it. They've been really good conversation starters for people that are in early childhood, that are teaching early childhood. And so I'm really happy about that because what I wanted to do is start a conversation around this topic.
Yeah, that's the most important piece to a lot of what we're experiencing now. Like, if we could just talk.
Yeah. Yes.
Like for real talk, like
for
this.
Real.
Not like with the computer.
Yeah.
Because you're not really talking to each other. Like, and you kind of are. If you're using video call, maybe.
It's not the same, though.
It's not. Right? High five. This was that was a physical high five. Y'all couldn't see that. You see what I'm saying? But that actually happened. Okay. I ain't got a whole lot of more time with Dianne, but we're going to keep talking. Okay. So this definitely, and the term leader is like, especially in our community, is like, whether you ask to be one or not, just move in a certain way turns you into a leader. Right. So you are. Right. So as a leader, right, in early childhood advocacy, what changes or improvements do you hope to see in the field of early childhood education in the coming years?
Kind of like some of the things we've been talking about, I really want... so let me first say this. One of the reasons why I even came to my position at DCYF is because I saw it as an opportunity to maybe really have some influence on some of the things that I've been advocating for a long time. And one of those main things that I've been advocating for is equity. I want to make sure we have a system that reduces disparities or eliminates disparities. I don't want us to have a system where Black and brown children are not having the same outcomes as white children. And there's a lot of people that are working really hard on this, and our state has been working hard on this, but I felt like I had an opportunity to really maybe have some influence over that. The other thing I want to see is, early on we were talking about access, and I believe the two are somewhat related. These two issues are somewhat related, but I really believe in access to high quality care. We have, as I mentioned, wait lists for some of these programs, and which tells me we have more people in need and less resources available than are really, than we need to help all the people that need it. And so it would be my desire to be able to have enough funding for everybody to have what they need and for everybody to have access. And so that's one of my dreams as well.
There goes that passion.
Mm-hmm.
It happens every time. Every time I have one of these interviews, it's like you end up I realize I'm talking to someone who is like really passionate about what they're doing, right? And that's the vibe we need from people a lot of times. And I like getting paid for what I do, okay? Right? But a lot of times I tell people, you couldn't pay me enough. Like, you couldn't pay me the same, because I'm a mentor, right? I'm a music mentor. I'm an artist myself. I'm a DJ. I do all these things, and the interaction with people, right? The feeling I get from like moving a crowd as a DJ, the feeling I get from like inspiring a young person and then seeing them go and do something great. Like, you could not possibly, like, you could try to pay me for that, but you could not possibly give me the same amount of money that would give me the feeling that I get from doing the job that I do.
That is so beautiful. I totally agree. We need more passion in this world. I love seeing when people are able to really move in the area that they're really passionate about.
Thank you. So community, right? How can community members and organizations support families with young children to promote healthy development?
So I truly believe, so I'm going to say this first. I truly believe that our community already does a lot to support young children. As I mentioned, there's a lot of brain development happening. So every time we have music that, or give children access to music. I love music too. Yes. I love to sing. And so whenever we do, and we do a lot of that organically in our communities, we sing a lot. We tell stories. I love a good story. Whenever you're telling good stories to children, they're building their language development. Whenever we're doing activities, fun activities, running and jumping and playing, all of those things help with that development. Whenever we are creating safe spaces, this is more and more important, I believe, today. When I say safe spaces, I mean spaces that are both physically and psychologically safe for children, places where children can go. And, in my mind, like, you feel that when you get that feeling like you're at your grandmother's house or at your auntie's house or something like that good feeling that that you're safe and loved and cared for, the more that we can create spaces like that for children, the better.
Wow. First I heard, we don't even realize that we're already doing this stuff. Be a little bit more conscious about it now that, you getting game, right? And we getting fed. Be a little bit more conscious about knowing that you're already kind of doing that, right? I love the acknowledgement of, like, you told this kid a story and you were just trying to tell the story. Mm-hmm. But you didn't realize that the detailed explanation that you were giving was helping them build something inside them. Like, yes. I didn't even. Yes. And like, a lot of times, you're right. We are singing. Mm-hmm. I'm cleaning up. I'm singing. Yeah. Right now, my daughter is like singing while she cleans.
Yep. Yeah. Or maybe you're doing a little rap or something. All of that helps with that development. Yeah.
So keep doing it more. Mm-hmm. I mean, keep just be a little bit more intentional. And I heard that there's opportunity, for us to do more. The opportunity part is probably the biggest part to me, because a lot of times people are hung up on us not doing it right in the past. Like, we didn't do it right. But like, it's about what you do next, right?
That's right.
I could talk to Dianne all day. I got one more question. So, and this factors into the literal food, right? If you could give a message, like, what message would you like to share with parents and caregivers about their important role in shaping the future of their children, during these early years? Like, this is the food right here.
I think the message I would like to give parents and caregivers right now is that you matter. What you do, what you say matters. but also that you're not alone. You know, sometimes the parenting journey can be lonely, but you're not alone, and that there's lots of help out there for you. There's lots of parenting support that's out there. There's lots of people that care about your children and are working really hard to make sure we do have those good, safe, high-quality spaces for your children. And so to reach out for help if you feel like you need it, but that you're doing good things. I think that's the other thing I want to say to parents, that you are already doing great things, and that every time you do talk or read or sing or laugh or play with your child, you are doing the good work of building brains and building your child's ego strength inside as well. So keep doing that.
I received that too.
That's for you too.
I tried not to even look over there at her while she was giving that, because I'm like, oh man, this is one of those moments, right? Like, and maybe this is just one of those things about our culture as well. When you know you're getting advice, right, from someone who really cares about you getting the advice, it hits a little bit different. Like when you realize, like, oh, this person's talking to me. Like, okay, I might want to just look at them, right? But sometimes it's like, I've hit a point in my life where, like, I hear, you know, I'm listening.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Like
a weird difference. Like I'm hearing and I'm listening. Like I'm okay. Because I recognize that a lot of times when someone asks us a question that we're passionate about and we start speaking, like we're like a funnel. So like these messages are coming from all over in the universe. Like this is spiritual talking, and you just happen to be the voice box right now that's being used to communicate, right? It's radio. Mm-hmm. Think of all the people. Hello, listeners, once again. Sorry. Any special shout outs you want to give? Any people that you want to send love to? Anything like that?
No.
Good.
But thank you.
Yeah,
I do want to say thank you.
I mean, I kind of try to give that opportunity to people just in case. But you always forget somebody anyway. So
yeah, I know. That's why I didn't want to say.
You ain't mentioned me. All right. Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you for feeding us. You can hear a recording of this show at littlemomentscount.org/podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Little Moments Count, you can visit their website at littlemomentscount.org. Is there a website for
early risers?
Yeah.
You can access early risers off the Little Moments Count, but you can also access early risers on the NPR website.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. Dianne, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Mike. I love being on your show.
And you can come back anytime. I feel like I got a friend, so I'm going to make sure we take a picture, and then I got your contact information so we can get that done.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Little Moments Count radio podcast in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. You can find the Little Moments Count radio podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.